How's it going, guys? My name is Dr. Andrew Chambers, and in this video, I'll be talking about what I think may be the biggest missing ingredient in your health journey. Let's dive in. To put it simple, as a naturopathic doctor practicing homeopathy with clients full-time, the biggest missing ingredient I see in my clients' health journey is that they or their health practitioners in the past have over-focused on specific small parts of their health ailments and not been able to understand or stimulate what I call a whole person healing response. So before I talk about what a whole person healing response is, let me first talk about what it's not. So first, let's explore the opposite of this. I think it's something a lot of us have a familiarity with, unfortunately, in one way or another. An example, we go to the doctor, we have some digestive ailments, right? Maybe some constipation, maybe some bloating, some abdominal pain. And while we're there, we mentioned to them at the same time this started, we had some job stressors and we have some uptick in anxiety, we have some panic attacks out of the blue. And rather than seeing this as an interconnected aspect of the same underlying issue, we're told, of course, well, you have to go to this doctor for the anxiety and I'll help the digestive stuff. Or the opposite, we go to the doctor for some anxiety and we mention at the same time that the anxiety is getting worse, we're getting some headaches in the morning, or we're getting some tingling in our fingers, we're getting some muscle weakness. And again, what are we told? Well, you gotta see the other guys for that. I can't help you with that. Another way this can happen is, say we're taking the health into our own hands, we do some health research on our own for our ailments, we're reading articles on the internet, or we're seeing another health practitioner, an alternative complementary approach, and we finally find that supplement that's geared for our problem, and it's going to help us by stimulating this very specific biochemical pathway, or it's going to help us by killing that microbe that's kind of at the root of this, or it's going to help by detoxing this very specific heavy metal. And how often do we start the supplement with very high hopes, only to find either it doesn't do anything, or maybe we get some benefit for 2 to 4 to 6 weeks, but then we're kind of back to where we started, or we plateau off. Or maybe it does truly help, which is great, but it only helps a very kind of small and narrow window of our health issues and still leaves us feeling off, feeling sick, feeling not like ourselves. And we're still, seeking that health we hear so much about, right? So what's going on here and how can we do better? What does the essence of a whole person healing approach mean to me? First, it means to view the person and their health issues as a single unity in which all symptoms in all parts of them, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, are to be taken into account at all times. And while taking those symptoms into account, to use interventions which, rather than targeting specific small aspects of that underlying problem, stimulate a healing response in us as a whole. And what I mean by that is, within all of us is an underlying healing mechanism, which is basically always at play. It has different words depending on what part of the body you're in, right? So one would be homeostasis, right? Maintaining order within the body. One would be the immune response. One would be the inflammatory response. These are all built-in features of our body, which are activated in response to an external stress or an internal stress, designed to basically restore harmony, restore balance to the system. And it does that through different biochemical markers, different nervous system responses, etc. Now, in acute issues like we accidentally cut ourselves, we accidentally get a bruise, this internal healing response works pretty much perfectly for most people, right? So what happens at the cut? Well, a few days goes by, the skin gets closer together, a scab may form, a few more days go by, the scab falls off, and hey, our skin's looking good, or maybe we do still have a scar from that if the cut is larger. Same with a bruise, right? We see the color change over the course of a few days. You'll likely go from lighter to darker, then back to lighter again, and then a few days later the bruise is gone, and we're back to ourselves. Now, in chronic issues, or what would we consider more underlying disease process, that internal healing mechanism is still attempting to work and is still working within its capacity, but it's not working optimally, and that's what's responsible for the symptoms being maintained over time, the issue itself. So my goal with the whole person healing approach is to actually work on stimulating that process itself, which allows the body to do the healing rather than the supplement to do the healing, and then we just get out of the way and let it happen. So what are the benefits to a person or the experiences of a person as they are going through this kind of whole person healing process? Generally, it means that rather than us only a few of their symptoms improving at a time, we get a more general and broad improvement in their symptoms. So we see most or all of their most bothersome symptoms improve simultaneously. And while that's happening, there's usually an improvement in well-being or vitality in the individual, which is basically a natural function, a natural result of this whole person healing approach being stimulated. It's kind of like the body can finally breathe a little, and the person experiences that subjectively too. And because this is occurring, a person is able to get off the merry-go-round of one small treatment for this symptom, one small treatment for that symptom. So aside from this insight into a new paradigm of healing, what practical value can this information give you? First, as someone seeking relief from your health ailments, when you are doing your health research, whether that's for a natural approach, a conventional approach, etc., always ask yourself, is this treatment stimulating a whole person healing approach within me, or is it only aimed at a small specific part of my issue? Whether that small specific part is a certain biochemical pathway or a microbe, a specific organ, a specific symptom, etc. Now, my experience with those more smaller kind of specific approaches isn't that they never work or anything like that. It's that they usually do not reveal their full effectiveness unless a broader whole person healing approach is being taken at the same time. And so it's something to be aware of for you if you're kind of deep in those bunny holes of those kinds of approaches and you're stuck, to take a second, back up, reassess things, see what you're missing, and kind of move forward from there. Second, I think it's good to know specific types of approaches that do tend to be more of the kind of smaller specific approaches versus those that tend to be more of a whole person healing kind of stimulatory nature, right? So the types of approaches I find are generally the more smaller specific types are any types of therapy where it's an over-reliance on supplements or an over-reliance on a detoxification scheme or an over-reliance on, killing all the microbes. Again, if someone's already doing these approaches and they're getting the results you're looking for, then great, don't change anything. But if a person has been at it using this kind of approach for a while and they're not getting the results they're looking for, it's again a cue to back up a second, take a look, take a broader perspective and see what you're missing. So thirdly, what are the types of approaches I do find are the more whole person healing approaches? I'll go through some of these, but just keep in mind that they're very broad topics. I won't be able to cover them in the detail they deserve in this video alone, so just stay tuned for future videos on the subject. Now, the first one I think we can't afford to overlook is nutrition. Now, this isn't to say that perfect nutrition can defeat all diseases or anything like that, because that's definitely not true. However, it's one of the most fundamental influences on our health as a whole person that simply can't be ignored. Now, I'm not a believer in overcomplicating this. I'm not a believer in a dogmatic approach in terms of it's one size fits all, that's it. I really am about looking for commonalities across various nutritional approaches that work, simplifying it and then applying it in an individual way for each person. So commonalities, I would say though, would be one, the things to avoid. So, there's probably two big factors here. We could say junk food would be one. So we're talking products high in refined flour or refined sugar. And two, possibly even more important than that would be avoidance of the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So what these are simply would be the liquid oils. We're talking sunflower seed oil, sesame seed oil, canola oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, and these are pervasive throughout our food system and probably the single greatest pro-inflammatory burden on our bodies. And again, this will definitely be a subject for more information in the future. But in terms of where to be more suspicious of these sneaking in your diet, I don't expect most of us are cooking with them at home in the pan. If we are, we want to stop that and probably substitute something like olive oil. You can do a refined coconut oil. Even a butter is generally going to be better than that. But they sneak in a lot in things like our store-bought hummus or store-bought salad dressing. A lot of store-bought desserts, you'll see they're high in sugar, but you'll see they're high in fat, and the type of fat generally is the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So those are two things to really look out for. And then in terms of things to make sure you're getting enough of, I would say generally eating at consistent times throughout the day. So once every 2 to 4 hours. I know it's not, I know it kind of flies in the face of a lot of the intermittent fasting stuff we're hearing about these days. My experience is that more consistent eating schedule, because it is better at keeping our blood sugar stable throughout the day, actually makes us much more resilient to stressors, because a lot of the way that external stressors kind of cause their negative effects within us is by dropping our blood sugar, spiking our stress hormones. If our blood sugar is stable, I don't mean too high like a diabetic per se, but stable at a good level throughout the day, then it's going to be less susceptible to those fluctuations, which will make us generally more resilient at going through stressors. And in terms of the things to be eating those every few hours, generally a mixture of some carbohydrate source and some protein source is good. A second major focus of a whole person healing approach, as something that if people are struggling and making progress in their health journey, a lot of times is being neglected in some way, and so it's an opportunity to improve on, is stress management. Now, I know that sounds cliche, it sounds like, of course we know that, Dr. Chambers, but the reality is I see so many people who try to out-supplement themselves out of a chronically stressful state, or they try to out-supplement themselves, but they don't focus on what in my life can I actually control to reduce my stress level, or what can I tweak in my response to the stress, right? And one way I mentioned is, of course, like I just said, eat a little more consistently throughout the day with carbohydrates and proteins at the same time, keeping the blood sugar more stable. And another would be, I really like the work of Aaliyah Crum in this method of terms of assessing your mindset. And not to say that all stress responses that we feel are because our mindset is wrong, because I don't believe that. But there is an opportunity there in terms of viewing the stressor as a challenge to be faced because it's something meaningful and important to us, versus this is a stressor that I have no control over in my life. Those are going to cause different responses within our body, and so therefore different effects on health depending on the mindset we hold. This is definitely, again, a topic for a future video where I can talk about this in greater detail. And finally, the single therapy that I found to be the most consistent and reliable at stimulating that internal healing process I was talking about earlier is classical homeopathy done by a well-trained homeopath. Now, the reason I say classical homeopathy done by a well-trained homeopath is because homeopathy as an approach has just so much, and I wouldn't say misinformation so much as I would just say misunderstanding by the general public as well as health practitioners. And so there's a wide variety of what people call approaches to homeopathy. It as a tool has been around for over 200 years, so it's not surprising that different schools have been kind of built up around it. But in my experience, when the right remedy is matched to the person, to the issues they're facing, it's the single most powerful way of stimulating that holistic healing response, which is how we kind of get the benefits I've been talking about throughout this video. On this channel, you will find tons more information on different whole person healing approaches, both in terms of specifics and in terms of kind of the philosophy behind them. And we'll be talking a lot about what to kind of look out for out there, not to stay away from at all costs or anything like that, because it's not about this is good, this is bad, etc. It's just about understanding for you, how does this fit into my healing journey as a whole? And so stay tuned for more. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and practically useful. If you did, please give it a like, as that helps it reach more people. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.